Hey, welcome, Lead Up listeners. Today is November the 1st. I first want to celebrate my son. Today's his birthday. He's 24 years old. He's a big part of our business at Harbour Resources. And I just want to shout out to him. He's going to listen to this. Obviously, he's putting this podcast together in various ways for you to get more out of it. As a 24-year-old, he's growing into his own leadership, his own manhood. Very, very proud of him and what he means in the world, what he means to those that he's leading around him, even in our family as well. So, Clayton, proud of you, buddy. Happy birthday. And I just want to celebrate you in front of the rest of the world and just let you know how much you mean to me, how much you mean to your mother and our family, and what you mean to Harbour Resources as a business. This is episode 410. I'm going to talk about four P's, as a matter of fact, four things you can do during the annual review, four things you should do during the annual review. So, as a coach, as a teacher, I want to challenge you. Get your pen and paper. I want to ask you to take some notes. I'm going to give you four things that are going to be critical for you. We're right in the middle of annual review season for many, many businesses. They typically do it near the end of the year, and I want to make sure that you get them done in an effective way that launches your trust with your team and launches your team members, those employees that you're doing the annual review on, launches them into success for 2025 so you're ready for the next year. Hey, before we do that, let me just ask you, hey, will you share this episode with other people? Will you share it with your colleagues? I guarantee you, you've got friends, you've got other leaders around you right now that need to hear this message. Share it with them. Also, go to your listening platform. Leave us a review. Tell us what you think. If it's bad, let us know that. If it's good, give us a 3, 4, 5-star review. Leave us a comment. That helps us get even better. I'm very growth oriented. I love getting feedback so that we can sharpen our message and serve the world in a more effective way. So we really do appreciate you for taking time to do that. All right, let's jump into episode 410. Four things you need to do to launch your annual review process to be extremely successful. Let's talk about this first. Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset. And in that book, she describes the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So I want to step into the message right there. I want to start our learning right in the mindset of fixed versus growth as it relates to leadership, as it relates to the annual review. Are you fixed? Here's what that would look like. You do the same thing year after year. You duplicate last year's annual review for the most part. 90% of what you put in this year's is what was in last year's. You follow the same process that you've been following for years. Or you say, my people really don't care. All they want is the raise, the 1%, 2%, 3% minimal raise that you're going to give them as an employee. Now, I know you don't have complete control over that, especially if you work for a larger organization. But I just want to challenge you for a minute. Are you stuck in fixed ways of doing annual reviews? Now, you may shut me off right now. Maybe I've already stepped on your toes. But I just want you to understand, I've been a part of some great annual reviews for myself. I've been a part of some horrible or even non-existent annual reviews. I've worked for companies that don't do those at all. I'm also in the Generation X category. And Gen Xers are now the leaders primarily in most organizations. Not all, but many organizations at a level of at least 50% of the leaders are at that Gen X category. And oftentimes Gen Xers got their performance review basically the paycheck. That was our performance review. You're doing well, you keep getting paid. You're not, you get fired. We can no longer operate that way. That's a fixed mindset. And so if you're a Gen X leader, I'm challenging you, I'm calling you up to look at leadership differently, look at the performance review differently. Now, maybe you're doing a fantastic job. You still might want to listen to this podcast and get some tips that I'm going to share with you today. So we have to first understand, get real about, practice sapere videre, which is one of the practices that I teach in my book, Quit Losing Talent, and use hindsight and look backwards at what we've done in the past that is good and bring that forward. But also look backwards in the past and get real about what's not so good and leave it there. Don't bring it forward. And then we have to practice foresight, that second lens of sapere videre. What do we want to be different next year than this year? Bring some new practices into your annual review with your employees. And then take those two, that hindsight, that foresight, and bring them into insight and do something different. That's insight. That's that third lens of sapere videre. Now, if you're in a growth mindset, using those three lenses, you will do something different. Growth means, okay, I'm not bad, but I want to get better. Growth means my employees aren't bad, but I want them to get better. Growth means I do something different with the annual review than I've done in the past. If we want a different result, we have to change. We have to first challenge ourselves, and we have to change or transform. Maybe you don't like the term change. Maybe you need to transform your review process so that you can transform the hearts and the minds of those employees that you lead. So first, examine yourself. Are you fixed in the way you've always done it? Or are you looking to get better? Are you doing some things differently in your annual review process? So let's step into the 4 P's, the 4 things I want to share with you today that are going to help you kind of elevate, hopefully elevate your annual review process and hopefully experience some new growth from yourself and from those that you lead in 2025 as we wrap up 2024 with the annual review process. Let's not let next year be the same. Let's challenge next year to be 37% better. What if you could get 37% better in the next 12 months? Would that excite you? If you could get a 37% return on your investment, would that excite you? Like if you could experience, if you invested $1,000 and you got a 37% return on that, that would excite me. I'm not getting that in my investments, by the way. But it would excite me if I could. James Clear teaches in his book, Atomic Habits, the 1% rule or the 1% effect. If I get 1% better each day, by the end of a year, I'm going to experience a 37% return on that discipline. I'm challenging you to experience a 37% return on the time invested in your annual review process, because it is a time investment. And I want you to seek a return on that time invested. So let's talk about the 4 P's that are going to help you get that return. Are you ready? Let's take some notes. Number 1, you need to prepare. John Wooden says, we can't wait until we're in the moment to prepare. We have to prepare so when we're in that moment, we know how to execute. We know how to create a difference. We can't wait till our employees get better for us to get better. We can't wait until our employees get motivated for us to motivate them. We can't wait for our employees to transform until we begin to transform the way we do something. So preparation is the key. In my experience, and look, I've worked with hundreds of companies, thousands of leaders, and some do this very well. Some wait till the last minute. Some are literally doing their annual review of their employee the day it's done, the day they're delivering it verbally. They've put no thought into it. They've put no extra effort into it. They've looked at last year and kind of just copy and pasted last year's into this year. no new thought. Yet every leader I work with wants more out of the people they lead. They want more motivation. They want more inspiration. They want more employee engagement. And they're missing an opportunity right here. Now, it's not the only opportunity, but it's an annual opportunity for you to step in and transform the way you communicate, challenge your employees, push them, but also push yourself. The question is, are you fixed or growth-minded? Are you going to do it the same way you've always done it, hoping that you get a different result? Or are you going to transform the way you step into that review process? Try some things different. So planning before the meeting. I often say, if you've ever heard me talk, I probably say it a lot on the podcast. Certainly talk about it when I'm working with leaders live. The most important meeting you have before any meeting you have is the meeting you have with yourself. So the most important meeting you have, the most important performance review you have before you meet with an employee that you're going to do that performance review with is the performance review that you do with yourself. And you've got to ask yourself some key questions. How have I led this person this year? Have I coached them well throughout the year? I want to review my leadership mission. What is my mission? What do I believe about leadership? What do I want to inspire in those that I lead? Have I led in alignment with that this year? How will I lead in alignment? And this is a conversation I'm about to have. We call it a performance review. I call it a conversation, a call up, a coach up session, an encouragement, an engagement session. I really do not like performance reviews. I think they're a waste of time because most organizations and leaders do them poorly, and we create more disengagement. But if you prepare, if you have the meeting before the meeting, if you really put some thought into it, you'll have a great performance evaluation with that employee. You may be saying, Mike, I've got 20, 30, 40 employees to do that with. I don't have time to put that much effort into it. Well, I say you don't have time not to. Now, hopefully what you've done is you've put time into their leadership throughout the year. You've put time into coaching them throughout the year. So if you've led according to your mission, what you believe about leadership, you've probably done well throughout the year anyway, and it won't take much effort. I'll talk about that more in just a few minutes. The second thing you need to prepare for is the values, like review your values. Where has your leadership and their performance been in alignment with the values? Where has it fallen short of that? Where has it been out of alignment with the values? What can you do to call them back to the values of the team, of the organization? The values that hopefully when you hire them or in some of your coaching sessions that you've work to create alignment around. The third thing you need to prepare is review your coaching sessions. So we're going to review my leadership mission. I'm going to review the values. I'm going to review the coaching sessions that I've had with them. Now, this is what I meant when I said I'll come back to this in just a minute. If you've had regular coaching sessions with your employees, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly at a minimum, every employee deserves at least one coaching session a month. Ideally, they need to be happening weekly or bi-weekly at the very minimum, but monthly is a call up to you. And if you've done that well, that annual review is simply another coaching session. You've got 11 months of information to review and bring forward into that annual performance review. You don't have to look at last year and last year's performance review. You just look at the last 11 or 25 coaching sessions that you've taken notes in and coached them up, agreed to certain levels of performance and expectations. So it's simply just a review. So if you're one of those leaders saying, I don't have time to do that many, well, if you're coaching regularly, it's easy. You just pull that information forward. It's not a surprise. If you surprise anybody during their annual review, you failed as a leader. If it's the first conversation you've had to them about values alignment, performance, expectations, you failed them as a leader. If you've not been calling them up regularly, at least monthly, you failed them as a leader. So again, preparation, the first P, preparing, reviewing yourself. You might need to apologize in that annual review. Hey, Mike, I've not done a good job coaching you this year. This is more an evaluation on my performance with you as a leader. But going forward, I want to set some expectations for myself and for you in our relationship to go forward. You may need to prepare that. Don't wait for that moment. Prepare that ahead of time so you know exactly how you're going to communicate that to your employee. The second P is praise. Now, what do we need to praise? We need to praise people for their attitude, people for their effort, people for their strategy alignment. These are things that they can control. Often our employees can't control outcomes. They can't control the bottom line. Yet we base a performance review on some of that. We even base performance review on like a customer service score. And yes, they can control that by their attitude and their effort, but they're not necessarily in charge of how those customers are going to score us if they get a customer service survey after they've left. So we want to make sure that we think about their attitudes throughout the year, their efforts throughout the year, where they've been in alignment with our strategy to help us move forward, to bring solutions into any challenges that we've had. And we want to make sure that we praise those things. Now, in my book, Quit Losing Talent, I talk about the types of toxic praise. We don't. This is not a time to be vague. Vague is a toxic type of toxic praise. This is not a time to be or vague. It's a time to bring specificity into your coaching. You should be doing that regularly anyway. But maybe you want to grab a copy of my book and review that, or maybe get a copy of our digital course where we teach you how to do that. It's not a time to be comparative. I don't want to compare any employee to any other employee during this review process. I'm comparing them to them, comparing them to the values, comparing them to their expectations that I've set for them on a regular basis, or at least last year's annual review. I'm not comparing them to anybody else. I'm comparing them to their effort of what's expected. I'm not really comparing them to anybody else or the results that we achieved as a team. So praise, learning to praise them for the controllables, learning to praise them for values alignment, learning to praise them for solutions mindset. And if they're not solution-minded, then this is an opportunity for you to coach them up in that performance review. The third P is plans. What are your plans for next year? What are your plans for next year as a leader for your team? How does this person fit into those plans, those goals? You first, and part of that preparation is you getting clear on the vision, the goals of your team going forward, so that you can create clarity for them and their expectations, their attitude, their behavior, their performance throughout the year. You want to be able to create that alignment during this annual review session. This means, look, you've got to prepare that. You've got to spend some time, have that meeting with yourself. What are your goals for next year? How to be better, how to be different. And how does this one individual, not the entire team, this is about that one individual, how does this one individual fit into that to help you move forward? We have to create clarity. One of the number one things that I work with organizations is creating clarity of expectations. Many leaders have expectations in their head that they've not communicated clearly to their employees. And so the leaders coming in and criticizing, getting upset because people aren't meeting expectations that we just expect them to know. So in your preparation, create clarity for yourself. Create clarity in your communication in the performance review about how they align. Don't just assume they know. We're trying to give them a guidance system. Like, here's where we need to go this year. Here's where you need to point your performance GPS next year. And then we need to create the runway for them. Like how long is that runway? What needs to happen in first month, first quarter, second quarter, or the year? When is the timeline for the expectations for them to help us get there? Create that runway. We don't want to put stress on them to meet the end of the runway that we haven't cleared. We're trying to get them off the runway. Hey, you're about to crash. You're about to crash. What if we didn't even set that clarity for them? Let's create the timeline. Here's what we need to do in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, first month, second month, third month. Help create that clarity for them, and they will run through brick walls for you, because then you're just coaching them forward, coaching them forward, coaching them forward. And then they also can gauge their success. They can gauge their performance. So you've got a guidance system by creating clarity. You've got expectations where they can gauge their performance, and you can gauge their performance. And then we also need to create some guardrails for them. Like, make sure they're not getting off of the runway and crashing. And that's where we really talk about attitudes and behaviors, values alignment, expectations for how they show up. So you need to create a guidance system, which is clarity. You need to create a gauge, which is goals and expectations, timelines. You need to create guardrails. That's your values. So those are your plans for them. That's the third P thing you need to think about during the performance review for them. And then finally, personal growth. Every performance eval, every annual review should involve some sort of personal growth. What do they want to be? They work for you and your company, but they're an individual. What do they want to be when they grow up? What do they want to be next year? What do they want to accomplish? What do they want to learn? How can you help them grow? Get them moving from a fixed mindset of just being right here to a growth mindset. Help them grow. What skill do they need to develop or learn? What competency? What project can we put them in to lead? Maybe we need to do some cross-train, having them work in other areas of the organization. How can you help them do that? The number one reason an employee decides to stay with you or leave is not money. It's about growth. Do they see growth opportunity within their organization? That doesn't mean promotion. That means getting better. Everyone wants to get better. How can you help them do that? That's our job as a leader, to make sure that we're developing them to be not only a better employee, but a better person. When you understand that as a leader, and you learn how to do it, maybe you understand it, but you learn how to do it, that takes your leadership to the next level. 4 P's that you need to do, you need to implement in your annual review process. Preparation, it begins with you. Praising how they do what they do. Effort, attitude, strategy, alignment. Plans, creating clarity for the future. And then personal growth, make it about them. Look, you can bring the personal growth piece to the front. This is not in order. Maybe you leave your plans for last, talk about their plans for personal growth first. I'm not prescribing how you do it. I'm just prescribing what you do. If I can help you implement this in your leadership style, reach out to me, Mike@harborresources.com. Maybe you need some coaching on just some ideas. We can do some coaching sessions. You can also grab a copy of my book, Quit Losing Talent, on Amazon. We have a digital course for Quit Losing Talent. I don't talk about the annual review, but we talk about coaching sessions and how to do. It's a strategy, it's a system into how to lead people so that you can keep them and make them stay at your organization. Check that out on our website, harborresources.com. Leave us a review on your listening platform. This has been Mike Harbour on episode 410 of the Lead Up Podcast. We'll see you next week.